I always feel at home with Tibetan friends. 10 days ago, I was at the New Year party and with food, dance, everything. I never had such a Chinese New Year party. And my journey for China's freedom and democracy actually coincided some part of it with Tibet's fight too. So in 1989, the call for freedom and democracy by millions of people in China, hundreds of cities, were brutally crushed by tanks. And earlier, so the first martial law was implemented in Lhasa, and we share this pain from the communist regime. And even here in the United States, we are facing the same challenge. In year 2008, about same time as now, I was beaten by supporters of Chinese Olympic when the torch was passing through San Francisco, and with me were Tibetan protesters. Today our topic is China's CCP's China's threat to the world, and it's not only to the freedom and democracy, and as we can see in today from the coronavirus, it's threatening the lives of everyone in this world. It is a virus of unknown nature. Think about it. China has the most sophisticated surveillance technology. Everyone, we can map everyone's day-to-day movement, but for now we don't even know who the number zero first patient is. How can this be? We don't really know. But of course, this regime has a lot to hide. And now, people, all these people who were brave enough to speak up, like this Dr. Li Wenliang, was censored, and he died as a result. Then there are thousands being punished simply for talking about it today. Such is this regime, and that's why we are facing this. The world is facing this, even here in this room. I'm really glad that so many come. I was warned by a lot of people not to come. So that's the situation. I mean, how it came here, all the way. A lot of it went back to 31 years ago. There was a hope for democracy in China. It was so close, almost within reach, but it was crushed. And United States allowed this regime to survive. Within a month of the massacre, President Bush sent a special envoy. I was in prison when I heard this news, to talk to Deng Xiaoping. Later we knew that he basically said, we don't really care, we want to be friends, because we want to be strategic partner, whatever. And that's how the world, I think this is the most important factor to shape today's world, is the United States has made the wrong decision, and China has taken a completely wrong path from them. That's why even here today, we have heard a lot of good discussions from Rob Song, from
Talking about the influence of China on international organizations, Interpol, World Health Organization. Think about it. It's like a propaganda machine for the communist China. It never asks a question, the origin of this virus. It always praise Xi Jinping when it talks about this virus. At the same time, it kept Taiwan out of the loop for simply sharing the information. And how could we allow such organizations to exist? I will talk more about what's happening in the United States. Just within 1 mile from here, in July, when the president of Taiwan was visiting, dozens of Chinese democracy activists were beaten by Chinese thugs who support CCP here in the United States. Guess what? Today, there's no arrest by NYPD police. They did nothing. It's very difficult for us, for the Chinese dissident community. We are so isolated. For a lot of times, I just feel that it's our failure that's causing the world such pain. On the other hand, people who are keep fighting now, we are in a much weaker position than, for example, the Tibetan community. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the United States is partnering with such a regime. And there are so many people, institutions who can benefit from this dirty deal. And they allow the influence to happen here. I guess people have heard about the world, like most renowned chemist, the department head of Harvard was charged for taking Chinese money. And think about it. And another one, a top German biologist is moving his library, all his labs to Shanghai, simply because he can get the best deal from such a regime. And just imagine what kind of impact it could have on the world if it's something else that comes out of this land. And when Liu Xiaobo died, he was the second Nobel Peace Laureate to die in prison. And the United States didn't even make a strong statement. And think about the parallel to Hitler's Germany years ago. And that's when the first Nobel Peace Laureate died in prison. And we want to make a sculpture for Liu Xiaobo. And we proposed that to Columbia University because this is where he came back from. He was a visiting scholar at Columbia University 31 years ago at about this time. And when he saw the protests, he went back and devoted his life to China's democracy. Guess what? Columbia said no. And Columbia is also the only university, so-called Ivy League, with the Confucius Institute. So that's what we are facing. And think about also for example, NBA censorship of its staff in supporting Hong Kong. And this is just overwhelming. And a lot for me personally too. You mentioned LinkedIn censored my post on LinkedIn because it's visible to Chinese within China. And so when the Hong Kong protests were happening, there was a Taiwanese restaurant owner in Chile who supported Hong Kong
freedom. And then his restaurant was under siege from the Chinese thugs. And then eventually, these people even threatened me, gave me a life warning. They didn't know I'm here. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so that's such a regime. So it's a lot of we are seeing it everywhere, and it's not only through Chinese company or multinationals who do business in China. It's through pretty much many institutions here, United States, everywhere. Even President Trump, he mentioned this regular flu, as a comparison to the coronavirus pandemic. This sounds very strangely familiar because this was exactly what China has been brainwashing Chinese people with. I mean, how could it get into the brain of President of United States? But anyway, today, I think the good news is a lot more people are waking up simply because of this. For example, I mean, within China too. For example, here, our dissident community, we work very hard to recruit young people, but we never succeed simply because they have family in China and they are monitored at every step. But when Dr. Li Wenliang died, there was a rally for him at Central Park. About 300 people show up because this is one person that they can all identify. And it's a moment that a lot in China realize this freedom is so precious. It's essential for your life, for your survival. And of course, I appreciate the change of policy in the United States too, in the recent years too. I think the world should just fight back, confront, reciprocate on trade, on every issue with communist China. Because this is an existential threat to everything we love. And I'm glad to be with friends here. In the past, Humanitarian China, my organization, we have worked pretty much with every group. We have provided support for Weiwu scholar Yihan Toti, and we have supported Hong Kong. I was in Taiwan to observe the general election. And here we always work together with the Tibetan community. We are fighting this fight not only for us and for the world. Now we are definitely a small minority, but it's our honor to be fighting this. And by working together, we will triumph, and we will help the world prevent future disasters like this virus pandemic that's going on now. Thank you. Thank you for always reaching out to Chinese everywhere. You know, when we were in San Francisco here, and I think the Tibetan community has done the best. And there's a lot we want to learn. We want to grow our own community. We want to be able to have cultural events to invite the Tibetan friends to come too. For us, it's a long way to go. I think I share the pessimism we have for China's future and what we really can do. We must be realistic. There's not much we can do to change the situation because money talks, all that. It is not easy. But things will change, and no regime like this could survive forever. And for us now, we are pretty much doing the same thing. We want to carry the tradition of freedom and democracy for China within our Chinese community here in the United States. So we are building Tiananmen Monument in Liberty Sculpture Park in Los Angeles, and I'm invited to come to visit. And in the future, if we have the resource, we are going to build a giant statue of democracy for China. Maybe it will take a decade or 2 decades. Maybe in our lifetime, we'll never see China's democracy. That's possible. But here we have the freedom. That's what we can do. This history, this legacy of China's freedom is still here with us. It is very important, and so it's true for everything we do today. We carry the moral stand for the world in fighting communist China. This is something we must fight together. As to really policy side, I think, for example, I would suppose we can unify on this firewall issue and use that as something we can all work on together. We all know U.S. companies are competing to gain favor of Beijing, and there's no stop to that. What we have to, I think the U.S. government has to do something, and we have to tell them this is not something that individual companies can do in terms of the internet freedom issue with China, and with now China very sophisticated development in artificial intelligence, big data, everything. It is a real threat to the United States, to everyone, and someone has to be alert to this. We are probably sounding the alarm now. Maybe one day the United States will wake up. That's what we can do. We can try. In terms of internet policy, I think the United States should definitely insist on removing this firewall as a trade barrier for any trade talk with China. Without removing this firewall, for example, we should block all Chinese web traffic. Think about it. We can open it one by one. Think about the unthinkable. That's probably the other way we can do it. Thank you.